what's up, fam? We are back on the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down with Mr. Eddie Gonzales. He's a commercial broker here in the Valley. He has been in the industry for the last 6 years. And you made a leap from the corporate world where you spent about 14 years and then jumped into owning your own real estate practice and doing what you do now, right? Thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate you taking the time and stopping by.
Yeah, I love how Phoenix is such a small world. And I think that I should mention that we met during water aerobics, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we should call it, water aerobics.
Yeah, well, I mean, I call it high-intensity training. It's water aerobics.
We met at water aerobics.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
We need to open this on the right
We could have
path.
left that out of the podcast, all right?
Is this
all
gonna
right?
be
No,
edited?
fine. No, of course not.
Good job. Okay, I love the way this is starting.
Of course not.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. My pleasure, man. So you do a lot of stuff. You have a pretty good extensive background in real estate. You're super active. You're very active in social media. You're always, you have that ability to engage people into the stuff that you're doing, into your content. But you also mentioned that a lot of the stuff that you apply now is coming from a previous world in the corporate, sense of things, right? You were working at the RITZ.
That's correct.
For a while.
So everything
Break it
that
down,
I'm
yeah.
doing now really kind of culminates around what I learned there. And ironically, I'm in commercial real estate because the first person that I met when I walked through the door to interview was a valet at the moment. He is now my senior business partner.
What?
How about that for full circle?
Wow.
Yeah. So when I went in to interview, gentleman approaches me and he says, "How can I help? You look lost." And I said, "I am lost. I'm looking for human resources." And he says, "It's very hard to find. I'm going to walk you back there." So it was a 3 or 4 minute walk. We chatted. We had a good time. One of his comments while we're walking down the hallway is, "You should be a valet and you should park cars." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're built like a valet." And I said, "All right."
What does that mean?
That's actually what I'm here to apply for. So I went through the process, got hired as a valet, jumped out on the front drive on my first day, and he looks at me and he's like, "Holy cow, you made it." What I didn't know at the time is 1 in 10 people pass the personality test, which is your background, to get to apply for the job.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Wow, I had no idea.
So you have to pass a personality test to then be able to apply for the job at the RITZ, and then you have 6 interviews, and then you get to go to orientation.
For the valet. Wow, that's intense, man.
Position. So one thing that not a ton of people think about, valet, you're the very first touch point.
Yeah.
So you set the tone of the stay. And at a hotel like the Ritz-Carlton, you're dealing with some pretty high-profile type people. So they need you to just be on point.
Yeah.
So I learned so much at that hotel, starting as a valet.
Yeah.
Then I moved up to bellman. Then I did an overnight bellman. Then I did doorman. Then I did door captain, where I was running the whole show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you went through the whole ringer in terms of customer, service, training and really exposure, right? It's not really something that I was at the RITZ on Saturday. We had a conference and I was speaking at that conference, and sure enough, I pulled up the valet. I mean, he greeted me very, very, super professional. Every person that I ran into that was part of the RITZ, I mean, they were very easy to talk to. They had this very professional demeanor and everything, but I had no idea that it was, the process on the back end was so extensive.
It is.
That's crazy, man.
It is. I worked in Honeywell Engines and Systems prior to that. It was actually easier to get a government job working on airplanes than it was to work at the Ritz-Carlton.
Wow.
It was such a blessing, though. I learned so much at that hotel, whether it was how to be led and then working my way into the leadership positions and just how you treat people and how you lead people. And one of the things I always like to bring up, the golden rule, right? Treat other people how you want to be treated. That is what I learned not to do at the RITZ. Platinum rule. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Treat people how
they want to be treated. Okay. Yeah.
And that was something, like, I'm the type of person that if a leader comes to me, I don't need direction. I don't want to hear praise. And that was tough for me as a leader because I'm like, these guys don't need to be hearing that they're doing a good job all day, every day. Well, that's wrong. Some people do need to hear it. Some people like to hear it. So that was just like one of those little things that you learn. And it was so cool being part of the leadership team too, because you go into these meetings and you're learning from the best of the best in the service industry.
Right. I mean, and it's tried and tested, right? It's not like it's a brand new. Basically, what's happening, you're cutting the learning curve and you're hacking into a business model that's top tier. Hospitality, man, it's not easy. Think about the needs and how dynamic a company has to be to just adapt to the needs of everybody that's coming in through their doors.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine. I can, the whole array of trainings that you had to go through and whatnot. How does that or having experience in the corporate space, especially in the hospitality, how has that helped your entrepreneurship career?
Honestly, it teed everything up. It was a complete setup as to what I'm doing now. So even though I worked for the Ritz-Carlton, it truly felt like I was working for myself to serve the customers. It's exactly what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, a lot of people that I bump into in the commercial real estate world were somewhat my clients at the hotel because they would come in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner meetings, and we were just having a different type of interaction.
Right.
And I do want to bring this up. My only regret when I was in the hotel was not forming deeper relationships with guests. When they announced, so they actually closed that hotel. I was one of the last people out of the building as a RITZ. It was one of those things where I should have had everyone's phone numbers. I should have had everyone's emails. We all thought we were coming back to the hotel to work. That wasn't the case. So when I did decide to go into commercial real estate, I should have had my phone loaded up with all those contacts. I didn't. So that's just a good listener or a lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
That get everyone's contacts, get everyone's emails, and form the relationship deeper because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
The 100%, man. It's your net worth is your network, right? I mean, it sounds cliche when you say it or when you hear it, but it's true. I think as entrepreneurs, we have the ability to be resourceful, and a lot of times we can be way more resourceful than the amount of resources that we have. And if you have nowhere to kind of leverage your needs and your value. Or plays your needs and your value, it's hard to do anything. Like especially if you're coming into entrepreneurship, you're jumping into your own business or starting off and whatnot. A lot of times you can be stopped a lot faster if you don't have the ability to connect with somebody else. I was doing a coaching call right now with one of my students, and it was the thing. Like we were talking, we were going back through the business model, we were going back through the strategies, and everything was lined up right. The networking part was a missing link. Like, okay, this is what's happening. You have everything laid out, but the reason you're still, at a standstill, it's because you haven't branched out of that space that you're in. I mean, you have that space really dialed in, but you haven't branched out and connected with new people. You haven't put yourself in different rooms where people know more than you. So you're stagnant,
and that can be really uncomfortable. That could be really uncomfortable for a lot 100%. Of people. Unfortunately for me, it's my strength. I like talking to everyone. It's my thing. It's my thing. I just want to meet people and I want to understand them. And networking is by far my favorite part of this job.
And there's almost like a stigma behind it, right? Like, I'm going to go to a mixer. I'm going to go to this networking meeting. And then I see it, 1,000 times every time I go to any networking event, right? Some people are there just for the phone, for the phone number, but there's no authenticity behind the person. You carry yourself. I mean, the person that I met in day one is the person that I kept talking to afterwards. Even when I didn't know you, you were very approachable. You it felt authentic. Like right. you know what I mean.
It is.
So it's not just with the ultimate purpose of okay, I'm gonna grab a phone number and then that's another resource that I have. It's the actual connection. It's the the relationship building part of it. I think that can be one of the missing links that a lot of people have out there when they're trying to build their Rolodex, right? Rolodex, is that still a thing? People do that.
I've never owned one. I think my dad had one on the desk.
I've heard about them. I think I had one at one point, but it's I mean, your contact database, right? And it's contacts are important, right? But relationships are really
1,000%
what matters.
1,000%. Yeah, once that surface level stuff is okay, but it's when you start diving deep and you learn and you do water aerobics with someone.
Exactly.
It bonds it.
That's where it starts. If you want to blow up your productivity, go to water.
Water aerobics is where it starts.
That's where it goes.
No, it's interesting that you say that. So social media is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a thing in commercial real estate,
right.
Although I'm part of a group that's really making it more of a thing, and we're generating a lot of leads all over the country. The name of the group is the Digital Army. We started during COVID, and we just wanted to all kind of come together and utilize social media to figure out how we can drive more business to each other. So literally, we've got the United States covered. There's about 70 of us right now. And the thing of it is, so many people touch, right? You do the gentle touch. I just got, while I was in that other room, a DM from a gentleman. He's like, okay, well, what's the next step? Well, his first interaction was his sales pitch. And now I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I don't even really understand what you do. Like, let's dive deep. And yes, it does take time, but it's worth it.
Yeah. It's social media. I mean, going back to the network, right, and the connections. Social media is the way people date us. Like, if you have something of value, something that you're putting out there, a message, a product, whatever it is, people are gonna date you and decide whether or not they trust you enough to be part of your process, your program, or your service through more than likely social media. It's just the easiest way to get there. So if it sucks, everything else behind it's also going to suck.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of times when new people come into the industry, commercial real estate is dating. I'm not going to go up to that beautiful girl and say, hey, you want to get married?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah.
You're going to go up, and then you're going to introduce yourself, and then you're going to talk, and then you're going to ask out on the date, and then maybe 2, 3, 4, 10 years later, you're going to say, can I sell your building?
Right.
Which is the equivalent of, do you want to get married?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a natural progression, right, as you go. But people start to know you. It's interesting to, for example, run into somebody on the street that's been watching, for example, a YouTube channel or, posts and reels on Instagram and videos and content and that kind of stuff. They know a lot about you at that point, right? They almost understand how, what type of person you are. And like you said, sometimes they can be a complete stranger, from this side, right? But it doesn't mean that it's the same thing from that side, because they're consuming your personality through content. So it's important. I mean, right now, anybody who's not doing something solid and taking social media as a serious thing for business, as a serious strategy for business, they're missing out on the exact dropping the ball. Absolutely. So I'm curious to break down, I guess, some of the stuff that you spent 14 years at the RITZ. Right, and then you climbed up through the through the ladder, and then got to leadership. What else, if you were to tell me maybe 3 things that you think every entrepreneur should know that you learned at the RITZ, what would it be?
Such a good question. I'm glad I brought this.
What do we have?
This is a Ritz-Carlton Credo card, and this one is for you.
Oh, wow!
So that is
Sweet.
A playbook as to if there is ever a challenge you have, and every employee carries those in their pocket.
Wow.
So that's one of the things. The Ritz-Carlton Credo card, it's got the employee promise, it's got the guest, anything and everything that could happen. These steps will walk you through how do you get to the end result.
This is savage, man.
So I have a funny story about that. I worked at the Ritz, and then I went and worked at another hotel that I'm not going to name. Well, my very first day, I got pulled into a meeting. There were 30 people in the room. Most hotels have something similar to those now. I always carry the Ritz-Carlton one. So I'm in this room, new company. The general manager is walking around the room, making sure that everyone has their card for the other company. I, almost as a joke, pulled out my Ritz-Carlton one because it's always in my pocket.
Almost as a joke.
Almost as a joke. He was a Ritz-Carlton guy. He was the one that hired me. So I show it to him, and he rips it out of my hand, holds it up, and this is the executive team for the entire resort. And he looks at it, and he turns it over, and he says, "It's been a while since I've looked at one of these." Hands it back to me, and he goes, "Eddie's is better than all of ours."
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Literally, so many different companies came in and studied what we did, and it all starts with that. So for that first question of what do you need to do, it's all about the playbook. Then,
man, this is practical.
It's so practical. And there's not much to it.
If you're listening to the podcast and you can't see it, I'm holding a little like accordion type of business card, and it breaks down into 4 different sections. It's printed on both the front and the back, and it has an outline of things. The code of ethics is in here. Emotional engagement, stuff that employees need to kind of keep. Their motto is in there. Employee promise is in there. The credo, 3 steps of service. I mean, super simple, but yeah, it's really a playbook of how to behave within the organization. That's crazy.
I think that's
I love it.
That's the method behind the madness is when you keep things simple.
Yeah.
Which this is very simple.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of this particular card, every single day before our shift started, we would dive into this and we would study a little piece of it.
Wow.
And then you take it and you apply it, rinse and repeat every single day, every single shift. We're talking about it.
Yeah. I like this one. The motto is, "We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen." This really takes me back to Saturday because that's how I saw that, the first guy that greeted me, he was a gentleman. And he was very polite and I mean, he was carrying himself well. Right. So, I mean, I understand a lot more about it now.
Yeah, so that's the first step. The second step is training, right? Yeah. You need to set a bar, especially when you have employees, or if you're the only employee, you set your own bar. And what are the expectations? And we were so good about this. On my team, normally 20 to 30 people, and everyone held everyone accountable.
Wow.
It just didn't matter. It didn't matter who you are, or if I did something wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care if he started Tuesday.
Yeah. Come
say something. And we all kept each other on point. It was just a beautiful, well-oiled machine.
Man, I like it. It goes to say, right, having an understanding of what the morals of the company are. I mean, we call it principles and a code of ethics. There's different names to it, but at the end of the day, it's a set of guidelines that walk us through the behavior that's accepted right within the company. I have a handful of things, and it's actually 3 things that we operate by: radical transparency, extreme ownership, and people over profits. That's the 3. We have those 3 principles, and they're ingrained into anybody that works in any of the companies that I have. But it's a way of doing business. It's a way of performing, right? And when you have that, you start to create a culture. You start to create buy-in. And I mean, it becomes like, you just said it right now. I don't know if you picked up on it, but I did. He was a RITZ guy.
Interesting. I didn't know that I said that.
He was a RITZ guy. I mean, that tells me a lot of things. The type of culture that's in that place, the buy-in that you had as a person, as an employee, as a leader within the company, and then how you see anybody else who is a product of that organization. So I mean, that's a lot. That little statement says a lot, but it goes back to the way that people were doing business there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. Some people. So we were on the 24th Street in Camelback. And generally, we would go out afterward, just team bonding type stuff.
Yeah.
And people would say that we're somewhat of a cult.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, they're part of the RITZ cult. They're like, I don't like to call it a cult, but it kind of sort of is because we are very tightly bonded.
But it's a fun cult.
It's a very exactly. It's a good cult.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your questions.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, you did. What if are you using that kind of stuff right now in your business as an entrepreneur? Do you bring that stuff and is it applicable? I'm sorry, applicable to the stuff that you're doing now?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
Everything we learned, everything that's on that particular card is about customer service.
Mm-hmm.
What I do as a broker, if I'm helping somebody sell a building, lease a building, or buy a building, that's all customer service.
Yeah.
And it just directly rolls into, okay, are the systems and procedures a little bit different? Yes. Do I have a system set up? Yes. So explaining what the system is, explaining what's going to happen, which I will be the first to admit, every commercial real estate deal is different. So that's probably my biggest challenge is having that dialed in and being able to communicate, because a deal can go this way, that way, or
right.
You know what I mean? At any point, just based on, quite honestly, ego and emotions
100%,
and money.
100%, yeah.
So that's my little struggle, but everything is applied. And what's also nice is when I was in the hotel industry, I'm dealing with celebrity types.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm bumping into a lot of celebrity types and high net worth individuals, and it's the same. Same.
So I mean, it was like target practice back at the through that path. So you decide. I mean, you were in this space for 14 years, and then you figure out that you want to do something different. How was that leap? I mean, jumping from the corporate into setting up your own commercial operation.
When I was at the RITZ, I felt like the front drive was my own business.
Mm-hmm.
So that portion of it wasn't hard. Learning the whole new aspect of underwriting buildings was a little bit of a challenge to me, but I'm the type of person that's very curious.
Mm-hmm.
So I would always look at like everything. Like my first thought when I walked in this room, how much did it cost to build out this studio? That's always how my brain thinks, and that's how it has always thought.
Yeah.
I look at a car. Well, what's that worth? Why is it worth that?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing on buildings.
Curiosity.
I've always had that like, I wonder what it's worth and why. That's the other part is why. And that's what's interesting about today's market. When I talk to my business partner who's been in the business for 20 years now, like, man, this deal just doesn't make sense to me. Look at it. He looks at it and he's like, it doesn't make sense. You're right. It just doesn't make sense. But things aren't making sense in this market.
Oh, everything's upside down right now. I mean, it's the logical way of doing business is, it hardly matches, to the seller's needs or the seller's wants. Buyer's needs and buyer's wants, the same thing. So you the transition wasn't that difficult. I mean, from corporate to setting up your own space.
It really wasn't. I think the biggest challenge for me is I still had bills to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working at that other hotel in the evenings, and I was working commercial real estate in the morning. So I went 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. commercial real estate, and then I went 4 p.m. till 11 p.m. working at the hotel. That was it was a grind.
Well, it's the rite of passage, right? To it's trial by fire. When people are getting into entrepreneurship, it's like I call it the trench work.
I like that.
It's going through the trench work. I think there's a saying, I can't remember, I read it somewhere, but you can, if after your job, your regular hours, you're not building your own dream, like you're going to be building somebody else's dream. Right.
That's true.
During your regular hours. So it's I hear the rebuttal just for the sake of scripts, but I hear the rebuttal, right? Well, I don't have enough time to do it. I don't have I don't have the means. I don't understand it. I don't. That's usually one of the things that comes up in conversation when people are first deciding whether or not to bet on themselves. It's interesting that you went about it and you actually allocated hours. I mean, you just gave me a schedule of what you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that schedule worked. It might have been challenging, but it worked for you to get from from point A to point B, right? And then make that transition from the corporate, employee world to, having your own operation, being your own boss.
It's totally worth it, though. That's the thing. And I think that's where some people get a little bit mixed up is it worth it for you? Because if it's not worth it for you, you're probably not going to work those type of hours.
Right.
I did that for 8 months straight. I normally wouldn't have a day off, but I would have some days where I would just work one or the other job. So Sundays, I would never work in the morning for commercial real estate, but I would work at the hotel. So it's all about that kind of back and forth. And
counterbalance,
Rafael, I was never more productive in my normal life because I knew I only had get everything done, get it done quick, get it done efficiently, and then time to go to work.
A set amount of time, how was your mindset like impacted during that time? I mean, obviously you're a very optimistic type of person. I think you, if I'm not mistaken, you probably see a challenge and you probably get excited about it before you get worried, and think about solutions before the why not. Yeah. But as you're coming into something new, you're breaking out from this blanket of security, quote unquote, right? I always think that any job is a false sense of security because that company can go. I mean, they went out of business, right? You were just saying it, and then next thing you know, it's like, what do I do? Like, you got to move on and do something else. So we have, and I come from. I used to work at the fire department too, so I had that false sense of security, kind of hovering over me and whatnot. So when I jumped into betting on my own and then starting my own business. It was challenging. I was having self-doubt. I was having, is all this worth it? I am not getting a paycheck on Friday. So does this make sense? I mean, did those thoughts kind of creep up on you? And if they did, how did you handle them?
I am going to give a lot of praise to my grandfather and my father right now because they both instilled something that I feel like is going away that is so freaking important.
What's that?
People don't like to talk about saving money. If you have your cushion, which I was building the cushion, that's why I'm working both of them at the same time and still paying the bills and still trying to do this commercial real estate thing. You have to have a cushion to fall back on. Yeah. Because if I did not have a cushion to fall back on, who knows? Commercial real estate cycles are so freaking long. That first deal that I closed, my first big deal. So I work two different segments of commercial real estate. There's leasing, which can happen pretty quick. And pretty quick in commercial real estate, 6 months. And then there's sales, where my business partner just closed a deal that took 10 years.
Yeah. They take a lot longer than the regular 30-day escrow.
It takes a ton of time to get traction. Yeah. When I first started and I was still working at the other hotel, one of the developers came in that I was working with, and he's like, "Oh, you're both?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's smart." He's like, "Keep doing it." Yeah. And I'm like, "All right, cool." So then I saw him at the office one day, and he's like, "You need to do both for 3 years." And I'm like, "I can't do it for 3 years. That's too long." And he's like, "You need to do it for 3 years, or you can quit when you close your first big one." So that's what I did.
And so right now, what's your main focus? Like, where are you at? What did that turn into?
So that turned in a really cool relationship and a mentorship with that particular gentleman. And right now, I'm full-time commercial real estate, and I still work big hours. Yeah, I love being in the office at 5 or 6 a.m. And I don't know if I picked this up from my business partner, who is also a mentor. I have so many mentors, let me tell you that as well. But everything's on the phone now. Yeah. The first thing that I did when I pulled up to this building is jumped on my CoStar app. What's the building worth? When did it last sell? Interesting. Who was the broker?
Habits, right?
Brandon Copeland, you son of a gun. So I'm always just like taking it in and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I like that, man. And yeah, I mean, having mentors, it's such a huge thing. People see the mentorship process as an overhead, as an expense, and whatnot. Even if you have to pay for somebody's time, it's well worth the cutting the learning curve. It's gonna. Yeah. I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and at the end of the day, we get exposed to stuff when we talk to people who are just ahead of the game. We're not. It's a matter of timelines, right? You may have the same IQ, the same intelligence, the same. You may have traits and whatnot, but if the timeline is different, if they started 10 years ago, the level of experience that they have is gonna teach you something, right? I'm a huge proponent for mentorship, and I didn't I'll figure this shit out. Like I got this. Like no, I don't know. Just go out research and whatnot. And yeah, I mean I made improvements and advanced and did things, but I didn't realize that the rate which I was improving was so slow.
Interesting.
It was so slow.
Here's my thought on mentorship, right? Everyone has their own styles. They manipulate things. I use a lot of social media. Mm-hmm. My business partners do not. So you take the information, you internalize it, you try it. It works for you. It doesn't work for you. What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love just sitting back and listening, especially those early times. So he had the big office. I was in a cubicle outside of the office. And I remember just sometimes I would
fly in the wall type of stuff.
Yeah,
I love that.
Lean back
I love that.
And just listen to the phone calls.
Yeah.
And then that was a huge learning curve right there.
Yeah.
What do you say? What don't you say?
Yeah.
What do you know? What don't you know? Especially in brokerage, it's a game. It's a game of chess.
Yeah, it is, and you just never know what you're gonna, what kind of information, what golden nugget you're gonna pick up that's gonna be a game changer. It's gonna give you an idea, or it's gonna just push you, in slightly different direction. And then you find other stuff. It's a must, man. If you're in a competitive space. In the competitive space of entrepreneurship, you have to find ways of improving upon yourself.
1,000%.
Yeah.
That's what first thing I looked at is your stack of books in there.
Oh,
I love books.
I devour them. I read like a maniac. Yeah. I love it, man. One thing I love doing, and this is probably outside the context of a podcast, but I don't care because I think it's fun. But I'll. And it's my podcast, and I'll cry if I want to. And it's I'll pick up books on completely different ends of the argument.
Okay.
So, for example, I'll pick a book on getting things done. For example, it's a structure on filing, and you have this very complex system, right, of how to get shit done, how to kind of organize your world. At the end of the day, it's complicated. It has a lot of thinking and processes and things that have to be in place for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And then I'll pick up a book on the same topic, but it's completely on the opposite of things. Essentialism. You just worry about this one thing. So if what it does, it stimulates my critical thinking.
Right.
All right, cool. I think this book on this end of the argument has a good point here and there, but this book also here, and what it forces me to think originally, right, and to synthesize that information and come up with my own shit. That's what I like about the experience of reading and then tapping into different topics. The same topic with completely different perspectives. I
feel like that's part of our challenge in the world right now.
Yeah.
Is people aren't really thinking for themselves.
You remember that? I don't know if they still have it, right? Maybe I should look. But when I was in elementary, they always had this little section, and they called it critical thinking. So you would go through each chapter, and then at the end of a chapter, you had some questions, like the review and whatnot, like on science and whatever it was. They always had this little square that had bold letters in it and said critical thinking, and then it would ask a question.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest lesson I took from school, critical thinking. That little phrase I think was just a game changer because it's a consistent reminder of think for yourself, right? Come up with your own theories, come up with your own ideas, come up with your own, or synthesize, but process stuff, not just take information at cost. That's really how improvement happens, right? How many, do you go to seminars a lot and trainings and
all the time?
Yeah. How many people do you know, and it's this question is rhetorical, but how many people that go to seminars and then they get super excited and then check out on Sunday, and then by Monday they feel the excitement is kind of going down. They never do anything with the information, and then they just find the next seminar and then find the next seminar, and then you have seminar junkies.
Yeah.
it's taking that information, not doing anything with it, right? But if you apply and you just start, putting things together, you're gonna synthesize into your own thing, right? And you start to create your own path. So it's kind of like off. I mean, it's off topic, but I thought it connected.
It is, but it isn't.
It is, but it isn't, right?
It is, but
at the end of the day, like it links back to entrepreneurship, which brings me back to the we were talking about the mindset and the thought process that you were going through as you were transitioning from the corporate world and kind of betting on yourself. So you had this period of time. You said it was 8 months where you had to go and kind of double up on both aspects, the job and the business, right?
Absolutely.
How long did it take for you to get some results through the door where you felt like, okay, cool, I can leave my job and then do this full time? How long was that?
I was probably 6 months into it, knowing. So I got put into a very nice position because my mentor, my business partner, was my friend from the RITZ. So I got pulled into a good team situation. So I did have things to work on. Another broker that's new to the business walks in, and in the old days, they would say, here's your phone book. Yeah. Here's the phone. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had him as a coach and a mentor, so he was able to coach me through, and he's sitting right there. So if I've got questions, I could get through it. So I was doing little deals. I was paying for groceries with deals, but the big stuff, like really feeling the confidence in commercial real estate, it took years. It really did. There's so many moving parts to these deals, and even now I'll look at things and be like, whoa, this last deal that I closed, there was a move in the lot line. Things didn't get recorded correctly. And I'm just looking at it and I'm like, how do I get over this hump and keep the buyer happy? The seller made an error. The seller didn't know that he made an error, and it was back in 1993. But there's 18 feet and 3 inches that are in La La Land just missing right now. The buyer wants it. The seller's trying to figure it out. So there's always like these crazy pitfalls, but that's
solution
what also
engineering.
Makes it, that's what also makes it a ton of fun. Is no deal is going to be the same. So confidence-wise in deals, I feel like there's always going to be things that come up. Yeah. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a 100% confidence in every deal getting it to the finish line.
Well, I think I think that's a loaded question. It's hard to be confident about entrepreneurship altogether, right? And more so even in real estate. Everything, like you said, everything is different. But as entrepreneurs, we're trying to figure stuff out as we go. Right. Think about the person who's bootstrapping, for example, a business, right? And yeah, you may have a notion of where you're headed. Maybe you got mentorship, or you got somebody took you under their wing. But at the end of the day, like there's still stuff that's gonna have to be developed as you go. Same thing that happens in every real estate transaction. You just never know. You have to be able to just pivot at a moment's notice to find a solution for the seller. And I think that's. And it takes a lot of creativity, and you're really good at being curious, and there's got to be that that degree of. I'm a very naive person. Like I like to see myself as a very naive person when it comes to understanding everything. Even if I have a good solid idea of what a topic is or a problem, how it can be solved, I'm always open-minded, because I feel like one thing that I'm aware of is that I don't know it all. And something that you say that or somebody else says may give me a different perspective on a solution. And I think that's very, very important to keep in mind, especially when we're trying to construct solutions for buyers or sellers or whoever the client is.
You just said something that resonated, that brought up a very old memory in my head about pivoting and about seeing things. And I think you said coming around the corner. Yeah. One of the managers came out and he said, Eddie, you have doorman vision. And I'm like, what does that mean? And something, I don't remember the exact details of it, but something was about to go wrong. And I could notice that something was about to go wrong. It was during a big event. And imagine a 2-lane driveway. We would park 300 cars in about 45 minutes through a 2-lane driveway. Yeah. It's like we were crazy. I don't know what the heck we were thinking. We made it happen. 99% of the time, it was smooth. Every once in a while, hiccups happened. I don't remember what was happening, but something bad was about to happen, and I was able to fix it instantly, and that's when he called it doorman vision. So now I'm trying to apply that to broker vision, and we're talking about confidence, and I feel like there I was in the high 90s.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like I'm in the 70s.
Mm.
So maybe it's going to come with time.
Well, I think it is, and then it's just the nature of the business, man. The beast is different. It's hard to be like you said, it's hard to be completely confident in something that's constantly dynamic, right? There's so many things that are out of your control or our control as brokers and or just real estate professionals altogether. And it's hard to be completely confident in something that's gonna, you don't know if the lender is gonna switch something, if something's gonna pop up on the history. I mean, you had title issue, like you just never know, right? There's stuff that we can't control, and I think having a high degree of confidence in the things that we can control is gonna be like the thing that gives us sanity. Everything else, can move, and that's where the talent to pivot and kind of adjust and adapt to it comes in.
It's fun, though. I love brokerage. I love how hard it is. I love that you're living on the edge.
Yeah.
And so even when I was working in the hotel business, it wasn't a regular 9-to-5 paycheck type deal, which I think that's challenging for some people too, not knowing that you're getting X, Y, or Z at a certain point.
I'd say for most people, yeah.
I love the feeling of like, the other day, I was texting with my business partner, and he's like, talking with the buyer right now. Closing's November 16th, and he's like, we might lose it. And I'm like, ooh, this is the fun shit. What are we gonna what do we need to do?
How do we make it happen?
Yeah, how do we pivot? How do we get through it? Yeah. And we're closing. So
yeah, I think it takes a certain type of character to have an open mindset about that kind of stuff and like welcome the challenge as opposed to being freaked out about it. Like that's, I think, well, if you look at it, that's the type of people or personality that endures, right? If you are giving advice to anybody who's just breaking into commercial real estate, because that's a completely different beast.
It is.
Than traditional single-family residential sales. What's the best thing, or maybe 3 pieces of advice that you can give somebody that's tapping into commercial?
Annie, actually, our friend Annie introduced me to someone last night that asked me this question. So
really?
She just got her license, and she's interviewing with residential firms, but she really wants to sell multifamily apartment complexes. So my first tip of advice that was given to me by my business partner, because I said the same thing, I'll go sell houses, I'll learn a little bit, and then I'll go into commercial. They don't apply. So if you want to go commercial,
complete different set of skills,
different set of skills, different set of people that you're going to be talking to, different contracts. That's another thing that's really different is residential side. And I'll tell you, I've bought one house in my life, and I remember that contract. And now I'm looking at our contracts. We literally write our own contracts.
Yeah.
The lawyers assist, but when it comes to letters of intent, leases, everything is specific to a building. So when you look at, I don't even remember how many talking points are on a residential, and you go through and you can kind of, not even close. You're looking at, for a lease, 53 pages of legal jargon. So that's what if you want to go into commercial, go into commercial. The second point, going into it, we kind of talked about it, save money, because when I really started hitting my stride is when I was less tired because I wasn't working 2 jobs. So if you can save money up front, then go into commercial and have that little bit of a cushion and not work 16, 17, 18 hours a day, then you're on your A game for the next day, which I didn't really realize while I was doing it that was affecting me. But after the fact, when I could just work 10 or 12 hours in brokerage, I felt a heck of a lot better.
When I could just work a regular, normal 10, 12 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easy day. It's just a half day,
Piece of cake.
Most people work 8 hours a day, right? But not entrepreneurs.
And then the third one, I'll do like a split on it. The mentorship part is absolutely crucial, and the always having an open mind to learn. And I think those kind of go hand in hand. And like we said, if you take that mentorship, they're doing what you want to do, right? That's the important part of picking the mentor.
Yeah.
But you can always pivot off what they're doing. Like my business partner said, when I started doing social media 1 year into it, he's like, that's not me. I'm going to do more conventional type stuff. He'll participate if I ask him to. So he's really cool about that. But that's not his bread and butter.
And your social media is on point, man. I mean, you find your grooves, right? I know, like it's taken me a while to just even get acquainted. Posting on social media is not like it's not a. I know I have to do it, but it's not. I would rather like not deal with social media at all. Like I'm just that kind of guy, but I have to do it. I have to incorporate it as part of my business.
Yeah, it's work.
Exactly. So it's part of the thing that I do on a daily basis now. And you can't half-ass it.
What I've found is the Gary V method of just documenting.
Yeah.
So I'll go throughout my day. All of the stuff that I do is stuff that I would be doing anyways, but I'm going to take an extra 30 seconds to snap a picture of it, like when we walked in here.
Right.
Take a picture of the podcast room. You know what I mean? Like we probably should be running an Instagram live right now, but we're not. I dropped the ball there. All right.
I didn't even think of it. You know what? I'm going to start doing that stuff. I'm going to put my phone right there and start running IG Live.
Why not?
All the podcast. Why not?
We're doing it anyways.
It's
right?
happening. It's happening.
Game on.
Game on. You said something important about saving. I just had another podcast with David Richter. He's writing the book, or he wrote the book on Profit First, specific to real estate. So the book Profit First is a really good book. I've read it twice, and it's a financial structure, right? So it's how to manage your income as it's coming into the bank, and you allocate based on percentages. And it goes hand in hand with the principle of having that cushion in place. So it's what I'm trying to get to is that it does take. You build a cushion through saving, and then you have to understand how to process or how to manage the money that's coming into it. When you get paid, I've had students that get hit with a $30,000-$40,000 check. It's like, I can't wait to spend it. Like, the fuck you are. No, pump your brakes. But it's very important, right, to come into it with a mentality of managing the stuff that's coming in as well, like the results that are going to give you money. That money has to be allocated somewhere, and you have to do it smart. Otherwise, you're going to be back to square one every single time you
and then you get the check.
Exactly.
Chasing the wheel.
Isn't what we're trying to do get out of the rat race? Like,
So it's funny that I mentioned this because it's real estate, but not real estate. When it comes to leverage, I don't remember how I heard about him, but I remember being a 23-year-old kid amongst 40 and 50-year-old married couples. And I went to this church, and I had this little kit, and I walked in the door, and have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey?
Oh, yeah.
Financial Peace University. And they look at me, and they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I want to figure this stuff out. So I went and took FPU as a young 20-something, and I'm dealing with all these other ladies and gentlemen. But that gave me the base to figure out that particular money system as to, okay, what do I do with this? What do I pay off? How do you shift it around?
Yeah. And it's important to become aware, right? That it also takes, and it still blows my mind that we can't have a simple class, as you go through school, somebody in high school on money management, how to manage your finances. We have economics, but
it's not the same.
Not how to manage your weekly paycheck.
Right.
It's crazy. I used to give that. I bought. And I haven't done it. Maybe I should go back to that stuff. But we wholesale properties, and every time we would close a deal, I would take the Money Master program, or the what's it called? University?
FPU.
So I would take. I bought a bunch of programs. There were, I think, $400 a pop or something for, with the CDs and
Yeah.
and all that. So I bought a ton of them, and I had them in store. So anytime we closed a deal, after we closed the deal, we got paid on it and everything, I would go to the seller's house, and then I would give them that as a gift.
That's so
So
cool.
the seller,
Yeah.
not the buyers. Buyers doing fine; they're buying properties, but
Right.
the seller sold their property and they were
Just gonna get a
distressed.
chunk.
We
Yep.
found a solution, and there was some type of distress, right? That's why we were able to, get that done. But it was just like a way of giving back. When you plant, we had so many great comments from people and people just reaching back out.
That's
What? Thank
cool.
you so much. That was a game changer. And the people who actually went through the process of getting a hold of their finances. They turned out doing a lot better. Yeah.
I did a similar thing, but I was
Really?
giving it out for wedding gifts. And
I love it.
Quite a few of them
Yeah.
actually did it and went through the whole process and did
Yeah.
really well with it. I need to ask my sister, because I think I actually gave one to my sister and brother-in-law,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they ever went. I'm going to ask them on Sunday.
If it's still wrapped up, it's like, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, so they had the boxes and they had the DVDs and that's what I would give out.
That's smart. I like that.
So it was my way of giving back, but it's just financial awareness, right?
Yeah.
At the end of it, at the end of the day. So I love it, man. I have, so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe find out a little bit more about, commercial real estate and how to tap in, maybe, look you up and ask you questions or use your services. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Honestly, Instagram's probably my most active. I would say TikTok, but you can't shoot DMs right now on TikTok. There's a little bit of a stumbling block on that. So AZ Commercial Real Estate, all one word on Instagram.
AZ Commercial Real Estate.
AZ
We'll put that on the
Commercial
show
Real
notes. And yeah, it's before we sign off, I like to ask this question, and it was a very important period in my lifetime. When I was 17 years old, right? If you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
I'm going to go back to a thing that my grandfather used to always say. He was very successful in business.
Okay.
And he would always say, it's not just what you know, it's also who you know.
Man, that comes full circle with the networking conversation that we're having at the beginning. Yeah.
He was big into that.
Yeah.
And back in those days when he was in business, there really weren't a ton of people in Phoenix, so everybody kind of knew everybody. And it was really interesting to walk around anywhere with him, because he was one of 8 siblings, and they had a very successful business in Phoenix. So they were just kind of well known. But anything you needed done, throw anything at the wall, my grandfather would know who to go to, who to talk to, and what the solution was.
I love it, man. I'm part of a mastermind. It's called Family Mastermind. Matt Andrews runs it, and that's his superpower. Yeah. He's really good at networking. He's really good at finding the individual talents that each person has, and then making the connections.
I love that.
Yeah,
it's
completely agree. Yeah. Awesome, man. Eddie, thank you so much, bro. It's been a blast having you. Love your vibe.
Thanks, man.
Love your energy.
Thanks for having me.
And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and sit with us.
It's my pleasure. I'll see you at Water Aerobics.
Bro, stop saying that. But yes, definitely. I am not missing out on that. Boom. It's a wrap.